day 2 of how a bill becomes a law, okay? And I think we got through hearings. I talked about Megan's Law at the end yesterday.
No.
Did I talk about Mark McGuire and steroids?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're a little behind it here. So let me just talk about, these hearings where they bring in experts. They can also bring in celebrities and draw attention to the hearings. But sometimes just individual civilians make a difference too. I'll tell you the story of Megan's Law. Megan was a young girl. Her parents believed that they lived in a safe neighborhood where their children could go out and play. Unbeknownst to them, a convicted child sex offender had gotten out of jail, done his time, and moved into their neighborhood. The parents didn't know who this guy was. Well, eventually Megan became his next victim. And this horrible story comes some good. Megan's mother went to her member of Congress and said, there needs to be a law. Like, parents should be able to know when these people move into your neighborhood. So some of you may know of this law, but maybe not by name. So Megan's mother testified in front of Congress in a hearing about what happened to her daughter. When that testimony was over, there was nearly a dry eye in the room. It had a huge impact. So they passed a law that said convicted sex offenders must register with the community that they move into once they're out of jail. So I don't know if you know this, but there's an app you can download on your phone, or you can just Google sex offender registry, put in your zip code, and see where these people live near you. And you will be astonished how many convicted sex offenders are walking the streets of Wichita. One of my good friends that used to coach here, he was my assistant coach for about 10 years, is a parole officer. And for about 2 years, his parolees were all sex offenders. Guys and girls that got out of jail after committing sex crimes. He said it was a very horrible experience to be with these people every day. Many of them are very sick people. Kansas went further. Now, some would say, listen, if somebody is convicted of a crime and they pay their debts to society, right? They go to jail, they pay their debt to society, the punishment should end there. But by forcing them to go onto the sex offender registry, you are continuing to punish them for the rest of their life. So there were lawsuits against this bill, but it stood up to the Supreme Court. Kansas went further. You guys know what recidivism rates are? Recidivism, meaning once you commit a crime, the likelihood of you doing it again. Guys, sex offenders, especially of children, have very high recidivism rates. They will do it over and over and again if given the opportunity. So Kansas passed a law saying that once you do your time in prison, once you get out, if we feel you are still a threat to society, we can have you institutionalized in a mental hospital for as long as we feel you are no longer a threat, which could be for the rest of your life. Now, that got challenged in the courts, and the Attorney General of the state of Kansas at the time, a woman named Carla Stovall, argued this case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court and won. So in Kansas, we can put you away. Now, do we have good mental hospitals in Kansas anymore? Does anybody have good mental hospitals anymore? So like state hospitals are expensive. And as you guys probably are aware, a lot of our homeless in this country are people that could probably do well to be in a mental hospital, but we don't have room for them. Okay. So that is something as a society we have to look at. Okay. So feel free to look up your zip code. Okay. And it may be even in your neighborhood. It will tell you their name, show you a picture, and give you the offense they committed. Okay. Yeah. All right. So hearings, part of the process of how a bill becomes a law. Usually these hearings take place in subcommittee first, then sometimes again in the full committee. But also in subcommittee and full committee, they do what's called markup. So think of Mrs. Cass marking up one of your papers, okay? They're going to get the exact phrasing right in this bill, in the markup. They're going to do the genuine debate. We can't do a debate with 435 people. So the genuine debate in Congress takes place in these committees between these members, okay? So this is the real work. The meat and potatoes of the process take place here in markup, okay? And the hearings help with that, okay? So we move into the bottom of page 75, okay? Where you have committee action, okay? After the markup, okay, the full committee now reviews the deliberations and recommendations of the subcommittee, okay? Now, if the subcommittee doesn't report it back to the full committee, it dies. Like, they're in a subcommittee, like, this isn't gonna work. So they don't report it back, it dies, okay? They report it back to the full committee, okay? The full committee now reviews the deliberations and recommendations of the subcommittee. That committee may now conduct further review or more public hearings or simply vote on it. Turn the page. If the full committee votes on it, they have 4 options. How many options? Name 2. They can kill it. They can pass it. The positive recommendation. This is a really good bill. We've worked hard on this. We'd love to see this get through Congress. Pass it with no recommendation. You guys asked for a bill on this? Here it is. Pass it with a negative recommendation. That's rare. Let's say, hey, President Biden really wanted us to push this through. We don't think it's a good piece of legislation, but here it is. You guys can deal with it now. Okay, that's pretty rare. All right. So they have those 4 options. Now, once they pass it, if they do pass it, they're going to write a report. Hi.
Hello.
Were you playing the flute?
No, I play the clarinet.
Clarinet. Okay. You're backwards to me. I couldn't see. Okay. Clarinet. Awesome. My wife played the clarinet. The best one. Are you going to play in college?
Sadly, Newman doesn't have a band, so no.
No type of band. My wife was in the marching band at Virginia Tech. Played the clarinet. Yeah. I got to go to bowl games and stuff. She had a good time. She was a band nerd. Am I allowed to say that? Okay. So anyhow, this report, guys, is of great importance. Listen, remember when I talked about Obamacare? 2,600 pages long. Who's going to read that? Nobody's going to read that. Now, if you work for the member of Congress on their staff and they say, hey, I've got a little bit of homework for you over the weekend. I need you to read the Affordable Care Act. It's 2,600 pages, and report back to me anything you see in there you don't think I'll like. Have a good weekend. Okay. Woo! Yeah. All right. Emma, that sounds like a good job for you. Okay. Now, the report is a summary. Okay. This is what most members use to decide how they're going to vote is the summary. They're not going to read the whole bill. They don't have time for that. So the report includes, transcripts from the hearings. Let me just read what the report has in it. Okay. The purpose of the bill, the impact on existing laws, budgetary considerations, any new taxes or tax increase that will be required by the bill. The report also typically contains transcripts from the hearings, as well as opinions of the committee for and against the proposed bill. This is what most members of Congress use to make their decision. Okay? What do most members of Congress use to make their decision on how they're going to vote on a bill? The report. See how I just kind of rephrased that into a question? Okay. All right. Now, guys, sometimes when you turn on C-SPAN, okay, you'll see kind of a picture of the House or the Senate, and you'll see somebody talking on the floor. okay? They're at the microphone talking. And then you look around the room and there's not very many people in there. And the ones that are in the room aren't really even listening to the person that's talking. This is called floor debate. Now, the person talking is just blowing hot air. They're trying to convince people to vote for the bill or against the bill. But most people have already made up how they're going to vote on the bill based on what? Not the debate. Good? All right, you guys are doing well. All right, now, so you got a report, then it goes to the House floor or the Senate. So we call this floor action, okay? It is sent to the floor of the Senate or the House. Most bills start in the House, so let's start with the House, okay? So now we've got this bill. It's made it through committee. The 435 members now get their crack at it, okay? Because say you're in a committee with 23 members, well, the other 410 some haven't even seen this bill yet. Okay, so you got to let them see it and vote on it and stuff like that. So there's going to be two things of importance once that bill comes to the House: the debate and amendment. So how long are we going to talk about this bill? How long are we going to debate this? You got 435 people. Are we going to allow any changes to the bill or amendments to the bill? Okay. Now, good thing, because the House has 435 people, you're going to need some rules. And good thing, the House has something called the House Rules Committee. So if your bill makes it out of the Agriculture Committee before it goes to the floor, it goes to the House Rules Committee. And they're going to decide. Now, you don't need to know this for the test. They're going to choose three options: open, closed, or modified. Open means we are going to allow amendments to this bill. We're going to allow the other 400 members a say in changing this bill that came out of committee, which means it's going to take time. So every change you make to this bill, you got to have a vote. 435. We're going to vote on this amendment to the bill. You guys remember back in history when we talked about the New Deal? And Roosevelt, FDR wanted to balance the budget by cutting veterans' pensions and government wages, and it was unpopular economy bill. And they added this amendment to it called beer and wine to make an unpopular bill popular. Okay? Okay. Now, I have several that just are in history right now, so it's pretty fresh in your mind. Okay? That's what an amendment looks like. Okay? Closed, no changes to the bill. No amendments. Okay? Now, that increases the importance of the committee's work because the bill is not going to change. Okay? Modified, we're going to let you amend certain parts of the bill, but not others. So say the bill costs $100 million to do, okay? We're going to allow amendments on the amount of spending on this bill, but that's it. You're not going to be able to change any other part of the bill. That would be like a modified amendment process, okay? So they have very strict rules, in the Senate, or excuse me, in the House, okay? Because you have so many people, okay? Now, the debate, okay, they're going to decide how long we're going to debate this bill. How about 1 hour of debate? Republicans get 30 minutes, Democrats get 30 minutes. The leadership is going to get to choose, okay? We got the, let's see, we got Republicans on the right, the ladies, Democrats on the left, okay? Now, so Speaker McCarthy, Emma, you got 5 minutes. You got 2 minutes. You got 2 minutes. You got 2 minutes. You don't get any minutes. You get 5 minutes. Now, if you want to yield some time to Whitney, you can. Some of your time. Okay. So the leaders choose who gets to talk. Over here, it's going to be Hakeem Jeffries is going to tell you how much time you have to talk. Adds up to 30 minutes each side. Then the debate's over, let's vote. Okay? That's how it works in the House. All right? We'll talk about how they vote in a minute. Usually, I'll just say it now, both in the House and the Senate, they have these little clickers at their desk, like at Jeopardy, okay? Scholars Bowl. Yes or no, okay? Now, if you're watching C-SPAN, they'll put it, they'll zoom out and they'll put up on the screen, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, yay, nay, and do the tally on the screen, okay? Sometimes they will do a roll call vote, where they call every member's name and they say yay or nay. Usually they do that on like historic votes, very important votes. They'll do that, but generally it's just yay, nay. Okay, good. All right, now let's move over to the other chamber, the Senate. So let me tell you something, guys. The rules in the Senate are there are no rules. Really? So watch this. There's no limit on debate, and there's no limit on the number of amendments you can offer to a bill. Lots of amendments, lots of debate. Now, we can put limits, okay? There are no limits on these two things, okay? We can put limits on these two things if we get what's called a unanimous consent agreement. Let me write that on the board. You guys know what unanimous means? 100-0. Now, this is what it would sound like. Senator Moran from Kansas, you are recognized. Mr. President, I would like to offer a unanimous consent agreement to limit debate on this bill to 1 hour and to no amendments on this bill. We have a unanimous call for unanimous consent agreement. Will the ayes say aye? Aye. Aye. Will the nays say nay? 1. That's all you need, baby, is 1. The gentlewoman from Kansas, Ms. Murphy, is recognized. You may speak. You want to talk about this bill? Are you saying you're going to do what? What are you going to do? Are you going to keep talking? You have the floor. Are you yielding the floor right now? Okay. What am I trying to get her to do? Trying to get her to keep talking. But she has the floor. And she can hold that floor for as long as she wants.
That's how you get people reading children's books.
Yes. She can, as long as you can stand, Brent, and talk, you own the floor. And that means no other business in the Senate can take place. No vote on this bill will take place while you hold the floor. This is, of course, called a...
Stupid thing.
Oh, it's not stupid. No. Now, once you yield the floor, we're going to call for a vote. So you just keep talking as long as you can, because you really don't want this bill to pass. So if you're talking, they can't vote on it. Okay? Now, can one person filibuster? Yes. Can 2 people filibuster? So let's say it's me and you. So you talk for 2 hours. You yield the floor to me. You go take a bathroom break, get something to eat. I'll talk for 2 hours. You come back. I'll yield the floor back to you, and we can do this all week. Cat nap here or there. okay? But there is a way to be stopped, okay? And it's called a cloture, okay? So if you have 60 votes, you can end a filibuster. So if you have 60 senators that want to hear you and I shut up, and they want to vote on this, they can stop you. Okay? What if I have 41 people that are willing to filibuster with me? Can they stop us? No, we can do this all the way until the November election. And this bill will not come up for a vote. There have been some lengthy filibusters. For an individual, the longest individual filibuster was done by a man named Strom, S-T-R-O-M, you don't need to know this, Strom Thurmond, senator from South Carolina, who was elected to the Senate in the 1940s. He ran for president in 1948 as a Dixiecrat. And in 1964, when the Senate was attempting to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Strom Thurmond, a Democrat, filibustered that bill for just over 24 hours by himself.
Standing for 24 hours.
Now, you brought up reading children's book, okay? When one of the provisions for Obamacare was up, Ted Cruz of Texas, Rand Paul of Kentucky, one of the senators from Kansas who's no longer in the Senate, Pat Roberts, it was an election year, so Pat Roberts wanted to look like he was a conservative, so he joined the filibuster. Okay. Those three traded it back and forth for hours. The Democrats let them do it. Okay. Now, it's about 9 o'clock at night. Ted Cruz has two young daughters at home. They're watching their dad on C-SPAN filibuster. And he says, and guys, you can talk about whatever you want while you're talking. You understand. You could read the Bible. You could offer endless amendments to the bill. You could read the Declaration, the Constitution, Gone with the Wind, whatever you want to do. You just got to be talking. So Ted Cruz says, if you guys in the room will indulge me, my kids are about to go to bed. I was going to read them a bedtime story. Okay. So he breaks out Dr. Seuss, Green Eggs and Ham, and reads it to his daughter from the Senate floor. That's kind of fun. Okay. That's one of the things Ted Cruz will go down in history. People will remember. Okay. The other was after a big hurricane that hit Houston and Galveston in that area. He had a planned trip to Cancun with his family. And so this hurricane comes through and Ted goes on vacation in Cancun. He got ripped in the media. Okay. Now, he makes fun of himself now for it because he knows he screwed up. Okay. But, yeah. All right. So, moving on. Okay. So, guys, let me ask you a question. You want to pass a bill through the Senate. How many votes gives you a filibuster-proof majority? With 60. The other side cannot filibuster if you have 60 seats or 60 votes. Follow me? This is exactly the case of what happened in 2009 with the Affordable Care Act. Nancy Pelosi got it through the House. Democrats controlled the House. Not one Republican voted for it. Moved over to the Senate. Now, because there's no rules, okay, the House version is going to be version 1. The Senate version is going to be the version 2. Now, guys, the senators, since there's no rules, that bill is going to change. They're going to offer amendments to that bill. You understand? But the Republicans could not filibuster because the Democrats had 60 seats in 2009. Now, I told you, I'm going to tell you a story how that bill became a law. That's going to come on Monday. But guys, there's a twist, okay, which makes it a good story, okay? Now, one of the things in the twist is, guys, if a senator dies while in office, the governor of that state generally gets to choose the new senator for the remainder of that term. So if a senator dies in the first year of their term, you could get picked for the Senate and be there for 5 years, fully vested in the pension program, by the way, without ever being elected. Okay? Which has happened to people. If somebody dies in the House, they hold a special election, which doesn't make sense because that's a 2-year thing, where the Senate is a 6-year thing. Nobody said it had to make sense. Okay? Now, right now, guys, Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, senior senator in Cal, I think she's pushing 90. She's not doing well, guys. She's ill, and I think she's got onset of dementia. Okay, she has not shown up for work. She has not been to any committee hearings or anything. She stayed in California, and so there's some pressure on her right now to resign. It's not a big deal, guys, because the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, is a Democrat. They're going to pick somebody like Dianne Feinstein to replace her. She needs to just go home and take care of herself. This is in the news the last couple of days. Okay. So pray for her. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Dianne Feinstein, but I don't have ill will towards her. No, she's not doing well. Okay. So look for that in the news soon. I mean, I don't know how long she's going to make it. Okay. So, all right. So the Senate rules, guys, things are going to change. So remember when we talked about in history, why in the world would the government put a space center with some of the best space artifacts in the world in Nowheresville, Kansas, Hutchinson, the Kansas Cosmosphere? Why did they build that? Yeah. 2 words. Bob Dole. Bob Dole added an amendment to a bill in the Senate. Senate majority. Okay, he's the most powerful man in the Senate from Kansas. He added in a few $1 million to build a space center in Hutchinson, Kansas. Now, guys, this is how I think. If Kansas wants to build a space center, let Kansas pay for the space center. We're having the taxpayers of California, Illinois, Florida pay for that because it's coming from federal dollars. Follow me? Now, this is called pork or pork barrel spending, wasteful spending. Probably the best example I could give you is Alaska Senator Ted Stevens. Now, Alaska doesn't have a lot of people, so they don't pay a lot in taxes. But they wanted to build a bridge in Alaska to an island where there were 500 inhabitants. The bridge would cost $250 million. Now, 6 months out of the year, the people that live on that island can drive across the ice. The other 6 months of the year, they have to put their car on a ferry and ferry over to the mainland. So Ted Stevens, the senator, says, we want to build a bridge to nowhere, to 500 people, $250 million. Well, when this got out in the public, people were angry, obviously. You're building a bridge. It became known as the bridge to nowhere. Okay, and it did not pass. That amendment was defeated. How about $150,000 to study the mating habits of the Japanese quail? Oh, guys, there's a member of Congress from Oklahoma that publishes the top 100 every 2 years, every year, the top 100 wasteful spending amendments that get into these bills. Okay, the political science term is pork barrel spending. You guys remember me bringing up the name John McCain, right? He ran for president in 2008. Was not a huge fan of John McCain, but as a senator from Arizona for more than 2 decades, not once did John McCain add any pork barrel spending to a bill for his home state of Arizona. I respect that. Okay, these other senators, they fill it up, baby. Bring home the bacon from other states' monies. Okay, especially these small state senators. you know, we don't put in a lot of money, small states. You really, California, New York, Florida, Texas, those states contribute a lot to the kitty. Should we make them pay for things in our state? I don't know. That's, okay. So, all right. So we're going to pass this bill in the House and the Senate. Okay. Now, is there anything to add in here? Oh yeah, because you're going to have two versions, right? You have version 1 from the House, version 2 from the Senate, because it's going to change, because senators do that. Okay. So remember, version 1 in the House. And remember, this is going to start in committee, and then the Senate. You're going to start over here in committee, okay? And then you get version 2, right? This passes here, this passes here. They're different bills. We get to the conference committee, where they hopefully compromise. Yes? And they're going to get version 3 of the bill. And remember, it's these committee members that the bill originated. These committees where the bills originated. You get version 3, that passes. Got to go back to the House, back to the Senate, then it can go to the President. Good? Okay. Now, after conference committee, the bill becomes enrolled. Now, we have 2 page 76s. So turn to the second page 76 at the bottom. And there are 4 options. What time do we get out? 30? Yeah, I can do this real quick, okay? We got 4 options. How many options? 4. Can you name 4? No. Can you name 4? Well, the first 2 are easy. Sign it into law or veto it, right? The other 2 are not as easy, but they both revolve around this. 10 days, Congress in session, Congress not in session. Now, is school in session right now? Yeah. During Thanksgiving break, is school in session? No. Same thing with Congress. Congress is either in session or they're out of session. Okay? You send the bill to the president. President, sign it, veto it, or he can just let it sit on his desk. After 10 days, if Congress is in session, it automatically becomes a law. After 10 days, if Congress is adjourned and out of session, it's called a pocket veto. Now, when I first started teaching this 24 years ago, first time I ever taught government, so I was learning this along with the students, okay? I'm like, well, there's no name. There's a name for this one, pocket veto, but there's no name for the other one. And I had a student, now this is not honors, this is regular, okay? I had a student say, well, let's come up with a name. I said, yeah, who's got a good name? And this student, her name, and I've given her credit for the last 24 years. Her name was Dawn Garens. Okay, she said, Mr. Ebright, how about, like, it's kind of like a ghost is signing it. You know, like, let's call it the ghost writer. I'm like, that's a good one. Let's use that. And I put it in my notes. And I've been using it ever since. Now, if you want to answer this question, I mean, you can write this out, Emma, or you can just say pocket veto or ghostwriter, sign it or veto it. Thank you, Don Garens. So Colby Garens is in my 0 hour. So I'm like, maybe they're related, right? It's his aunt. Dawn is Colby's aunt, okay? Wait for 24 years. I swear to God, I've been giving her credit every time. Twice a semester for 24 years. Now, this term has been used in my class for a long time. I've had, I don't know, 2,000 government students over the years. At some point, guys, before I die, ghostwriter is going to make its way into the textbooks. It's going to become a political science term. Okay. We'll see. All right.
Why does that have to be my job? I don't want to do politics.
You heard it on YouTube first. Okay, so guys, I want to go over how Obamacare became law, because it does have a really good twist, okay? It's gonna take me about 20 minutes, so that's what we'll do on Monday. Tuesday will be a review day. We'll take the test on Wednesday. Guys, there are a few questions at the end of the section. I haven't put it on Canvas yet, but I will. You're free to answer those, okay? And turn them in. I'll make it due like Wednesday or something. Okay?
Is that on Canvas?
I haven't put it there. You know how when you use your browser, the browser I use, Firefox, it's got like the ones you always go to, like YouTube or PowerSchool. Okay, well, I've been going to Acacia a lot to look at baseball standings and stuff and pitch counts. My Canvas thing went off the side. It's gone. You know, like, yeah, I got to figure out how to log in for that. I can get to it on my phone. But... Yeah, I don't know. Yes, stop.